All right, good morning, students. Sorry I couldn't be here today. I will be back when you return on Monday. So, here is the warm up for today. Make sure you complete all four boxes on your warm up sheet, and I'll go ahead and help you out with the topic. The topic is still ecology. Give you about another 2 minutes. All right, let's go ahead and talk about it. All right, so it says part of a hydrothermal vent, food web is represented in the diagram. Which organisms are both secondary and tertiary consumers in this food web? And as I said earlier, the first box, that's going to be ecology. Remember, you should have the definition of ecology memorized, and it should be the study of the relationships among organisms in an environment. And we know that an environment includes both biotic and abiotic organisms, or abiotic things, sorry. All right, so with box two, we should pick out some keywords. So I'm going to highlight some keywords that you probably should have wrote down. So definitely food web. That's one keyword that you should probably have in box two. Other than that, you should know what a secondary and a tertiary consumer is. And I think the other word we did talk about is chemosynthesis. I know this says chemosynthetic, but that it's basically just like photosynthetic. These are organisms that are able to convert chemicals into carbohydrates for organisms, and they can sustain entire food chains. Matter of fact, we talked about these when we were talking about habitats that can exist without sunlight. So deep in the oceans, in the midnight zone, we're talking thousands of feet deep, this chemosynthetic bacteria can actually feed these tube worms right here, and these tube worms can sustain entire ecosystems without the sun. All right, in box three, you're supposed to restate the question. Hopefully, you wrote something along the lines of which organisms are both secondary and tertiary consumers. Just shortening the question or basically extracting the essential information for the question is what I expect for you to do in box 3. And I will be checking these when I get back. You should have a couple warm-ups already. Matter of fact, that front page should be full after today. All right, box 4, the correct answer. Today when I did this with B-Day, a lot of students were choosing D. D is not the correct answer. But before I go there, let's talk about the process of elimination. When you're taking a test, you do have to learn how to eliminate wrong answer choices. And if we see chemosynthetic bacteria supporting this food web or at the bottom of the food chain, we know that it's not secondary and it's definitely not tertiary. So if we were taking a test, we would cross that one out. Now, with that said, let's start from the bottom and work our way to the top. All right, so we have these crabs and these fish right here. So these crabs and these fish. Now, if we're looking from the producers moving upward, we have to consider what they are. So this is producer, the zooplankton would be primary consumer, and the crab would be secondary. In no aspect of this food web does the crab act as a tertiary consumer. So even with that alone, I can cross this one out. I don't really have to go into detail about this one because I know if this isn't true, this can't be the right answer. All right, let's look at ratfish and octopuses. So I'm going to start with the ratfish. Now remember, a food web consists of multiple interlinking food chains. So if I'm starting from down here, I have my producer, I go to my zooplankton, I have my primary consumer, and then I go to my crabs, I have my secondary consumer. In this food chain right here, the ratfish acts as a tertiary consumer, so I'll put a check. It's a tertiary consumer in this aspect. So I'll trace it, going from the bacteria to the crab to the ratfish. Right there I have a tertiary consumer. Now in this aspect, going from the bacteria to the to the primary consumer, the ratfish acts as a secondary consumer. So it fits that criteria. Going from here to here and from here to here. So I'll put my check. So I know that one checks out. Now let's check out the octopus. Remember, it has to fit in 2 categories. It has to be a secondary and a tertiary consumer. So let's see if it fits. So starting from down here, we have our symbiotic bacteria, which exist inside of the tube worms. And what this symbiotic bacteria does is it takes certain materials and minerals from the deep ocean and converts it into carbohydrates. The tube worms are going to act as your primary consumer. So I have my primary going from here, I have my secondary right here, and now at the top, my octopus is going to be my tertiary consumer. From producer to primary, from primary to secondary, from secondary to tertiary, the octopus gets a check. Now let's check over here. From the symbiotic bacteria to mussels, from producer to primary, and then from mussels to octopus, from primary to secondary, 2 checks. So that is what I'm expecting you to be able to do on the STAR test, and that is how we get the correct answer, which is C. Make sure you justify your answer. A good justification is both of these organisms act as secondary and tertiary consumers in this food web. When you're done, you're going to go ahead and fold that up and put it inside of the envelope in the back of your journals, and we'll move on. So a few reminders. So even though I'm out, you will be held accountable for assignments. I know I'm out often, and I do apologize sincerely, but come December, I'll be here every single day. Now, you signed an academic contract that stated that you were aware that I would be out and that you would maintain your part, your accountability in what we're supposed to do. So make sure when I'm out that you're getting your assignments turned in. Make sure that you're not skipping class like you should never do anyways when I'm out. And skipping class can be going to the restroom break for more than 5 minutes, actually. Next, you're expected to work 90 minutes. So if I'm not here, the expectation is that you come in, you get your warm up done, you start your assignment, and you continue to work on that assignment for 90 minutes. Even if you get done early, there's some form of waiting work for you to do. Matter of fact, you can be going over your Cornell notes. You still need to be summarizing your notes, adding your key points. Those are two things that you need to do every time with your Cornell notes. Also, back in the front of your journal, you need to be making sure that your table of contents is fully updated. Remember, that major grade will be taken. If it's not already in there, it will be. Now, I did tell you that you all had to bring a pencil pouch. Inside that pencil pouch, you're expected to have highlighters, colored pencils, regular pencils, and pens. That should be brought daily on A Day. I can't check it today, but that will be a grade going into the grade book daily, or actually weekly, starting on Monday when I get back. My B days, I'm checking theirs Friday. Also, return your journals neatly. Don't just throw your journals in the back. Don't rip pages out of your journals. I know our journals are, they might be annoying, but I still need them. That's how I justify your learning. When I meet with parents, when I meet with coaches, I bring these journals to the meetings so they see what is expected of you. I might show a really good example, and then I'll show them what you're doing. And maybe you might just be that student who's the really good example. So keep your journals here, keep them neat. If you need to take them home, you need to talk to me beforehand. All right, grades. They should be updated now. So what I put in there, I put the academic contracts, I put the assignment that you did when I was out the other day, and I want to say that I put a preliminary notebook check grade in there, but it's not the major grade yet. It's not going to be the major until I check it on Monday. So make sure you check that. If you have any questions, go ahead and email me as soon as possible. I'll get the email update right now on my phone. All right, what you're going to do is go ahead and take out your notes, and we're going to pick up going over energy pyramids. We have a few short notes to write, and then I'll let you guys know what we're doing for the rest of class. I'll give you a second to go ahead and find your notes. Just pick up where we left off. If you need to go to the next blank page, go ahead and go to the next blank page. Really, just make sure your table of contents is updated. When I check your table of contents and I'm looking for your intro to ecology notes, I should be able to look in your table of contents and go directly to that page and get the grade. If I'm flipping all around the journal, I'm just going to say it's not there. A few more seconds to get to where you need to be. All right, so here's our expectation. So students are expected to analyze the flow of matter and energy through trophic levels using various models, including food chains, which we've already went over, food webs, which I'm sure you guys have perfected by now, and lastly, ecological pyramids, which we started last time and we're going to finish up today. All right, so you might or might not have this in your journal already. I'll read it. If you have it, go ahead and write it. If you have it, don't worry about writing it again, but if you don't have it, go ahead and jot it down. So pyramids model the distribution of energy and matter within the ecosystem. And remember, from 8th grade, matter can never be created or destroyed technically, and energy can be lost or gained according to chemical reactions. All right, the energy pyramids show the distribution of energy among these trophic levels. Now that you should already have in your journal. If you don't, you need to write that. And this is something that we went over. Energy pyramids compare energy used by producers and other organisms on trophic levels. This term should be very familiar. If the teacher or if the sub, whoever is in here, asks you what a trophic level is, you should be able to explain what it is. And hopefully somebody can say that it's a nourishment level, or a feeding level, or a tier on a ecological pyramid that shows where an organism sits in a particular food web. All right, now this between each tier. Now, this word tier, I'm expecting you guys know what this means, especially as many gamers as I have out there. Tiers are basically levels. So between each level of an energy pyramid, up to 90% of the energy is lost into the atmosphere as heat. It's lost, it's gone. So if I were to ask you what's the normal human body temperature, you should be able to tell me. So hopefully somebody shouted it out by now. The normal human body temperature is 98.6 degrees. That means that after we've eaten, our energy is being used to keep our body at that level. At 98.6 degrees, our bodies are doing what they're supposed to do. Our stomach is breaking down food. Our enzymes are assimilating amino acids and building proteins, regenerating cells, destroying like germs that we don't need in our bodies. At 98.6 degrees, our bodies are at perfect homeostasis. Now, it takes energy. We have to burn our food in order to maintain that. So just existing at all means that your bodies are losing energy. So if you ever wondered why you can get tired just by doing nothing all day, you definitely can get tired by doing nothing all day. All right, so what you're supposed to extract from this is that if we take 100% and we subtract 90, we get 10%. So what this means is that only 10% of energy at each level is transferred from one trophic level to the next. So 10% of the energy at each level is transferred from one trophic level to the next. So what that means is if my producers are at the bottom and my producers are making 1,000 joules of energy, only 10% of that is going to go up to my primary consumers. So we take 100, we divide it by 10, and we move it up. So 10 joules of energy go up to our primary consumers. So make sure you get the red parts written down. You should already know the trophic level is nourishment level. You should know that 90% of the energy is lost as heat. That's going to be important on your star. So make sure you know that it's lost as heat. And then know that only 10% makes it to the next level. So here's our energy pyramid. So let's just say down here I had 100 and it's going to be measured in joules. So 100 joules of energy that are being produced by these producers. Now you should know that these arrows off to the side mean energy is lost. And if I ask you what the energy is lost as on the test, you should be able to tell me heat energy. It's lost as heat. Now I know sometimes we might want to choose mechanical energy, which is partially true because it takes energy to move. But when we're talking about the biology of a plant, we're not going to put that. So we have to be really general, and we're going to say it's lost as heat. That's the best answer. All right, so moving up. So 90% is lost. So only 10% of 100 makes it to the next level. So up here, we get 10 joules of energy. 10 joules. All right, and to the next level, that's moving up. And I know this is pointing off, but we're talking about what's actually being transferred to the next level. So what's going up to the next level? So what's 10% of 10? So 10 divided by 10 is 1. Or we could take that decimal and just move it over, divide it by 10, and we get 1. So how much energy is available to the owl that sits at top of the food chain? This is also called an apex predator. Our tertiary consumer, well, we take that 1 and divide it by 10. So we take a decimal place that's right here and move it over, and we get 0.1. 0.1, and you always want to put your units, and that will be joules of energy. Joules. And I know last year y'all learned newtons or N's or whatever you use for force, but we're talking about joules now. So that's how much energy is available for the tertiary consumer. This is how much for the secondary, the primary, and the producer. So one good way to check yourself is to make sure that each one of these is divisible by 10 and is still correct. All right. Next. All right, we have other pyramids that represent the ecosystem. For example, we have the biomass pyramid. I mean, this one is pretty self-explanatory. If we just think about it, it's nothing you have to write just yet. Just look at the pyramid and think about it. At the bottom, it's set up like a regular pyramid. We have our producers, our primary consumers, secondary, and then tertiary. There's always more mass at the lower levels. There's always more mass. That's true of Earth. That's true of the entire biosphere, actually. Trees, plants, dry weight, they weigh a lot. If we were to accumulate the masses of everything for this to even work, the plants would have to weigh way more than any animal up top. Think about the weight of a cow. A cow has to eat all day, literally. Anytime you see a cow, it's chewing. It's not always like that with humans. It shouldn't be. And cows weigh 4 times, sometimes 5 or 6 times as much as a human. The primary consumers have to weigh more to sustain your tertiary consumers up top. If you think about the ocean is not overrun with killer whales. You don't see them everywhere you look. If you did, the system would collapse. This top level can't be wider. You can't have more biomass up here than you do down here, or the system would be destabilized. And the word stability, when we're talking about ecosystems, is very important. You have to know what a stable ecosystem consists of. And sometimes you might hear it referred to as sustainability. So this right here is a good sign. We have a lot more plant mass than we do animal mass, and it's decreasing as we move up. And you should be able to know if we manipulate these values. If we were to cut this in half, what would eventually happen to the tertiary consumers? Well, it'll be cut in half. It's a mirroring effect. Whatever the top can only have what the base allows. All right, moving on. Oh, well, I didn't tell you what to write. What I want you to write is biomass. Know what that is. It's a measure of the total dry mass of organisms in a given area. What that means is that it's subtracted, the water weight is taken out. So if you think about how much a human truly weighs, you have to take out the water, and we're 70% water. So if you were to go get on a scale, weigh yourself, take 30% of that. That's your true weight. That's your true weight. The human cell is full of water. If you don't believe me, go to the grocery store, look at a steak, look at how much it weighs. I don't know, it might have the ounces for, or just pick up 2 pounds of steak, and then go to the jerky aisle and pick up 2 pounds of beef jerky. That's the difference between water weight and actual dry weight. All right, and that's biomass. Moving on. All right, the pyramid of numbers, this one is almost too basic to even explain, but this is kind of what I just said, the numbers. So not only the weight, we're talking about the organisms. The producers at the bottom are going to be always more numerous. Think about how many particular individual organisms of grass species it takes to feed a cow. So one cow might eat, I don't know, maybe 30,000 individual organisms of grass. Remember that a grass is typically looked at as a population. When we see grass, we just see grass. We don't look at one particular organism, but with the levels of organization, this is how you have to think. And if I were here in your presence, I would ask you, what are the levels of organization? Hopefully somebody will be able to say, well, organisms, population, community, ecosystem, and then biosphere or biome. So the numbers pyramid. We can't have too many tertiary consumers. Think about those nature documentaries that we watch or that I watch. I'm sure you watched some of them or at least seen Lion King. You can't have too many lions and hyenas. What happened when Simba left and Scar took over and overran the place with hyenas? The entire ecosystem collapsed. There's a lesson in that movie. Now, if we look at it like it's supposed to look, if we ever look at the Serengeti, the producers outnumber the carnivores by a lot. That's the way it has to be. All right, so a vast number of producers. This is vocabulary. I think we can infer what that word means. Vast means a lot. A lot of producers or a high number of producers are required to support even a few top-level consumers. And I know this says group, but we don't have time for group. And with me not being here to kind of direct you all, I don't know how they're going to separate the class, and I can't make everybody accountable for everybody right now while I'm out. So what we're going to do, each student is going to be responsible for submitting their complete poster. I want to say that we started on this either last week. I want to say we did. But even if we didn't, even if this is brand new, I'm going to go over it. What you're going to be given is a paper. That paper has a essay, actually a case study about an ecosystem. Now, this ecosystem is referred to as the Evergreen Grove. So this Evergreen Grove ecosystem is going to be detailed in this paper. You're going to read the first and second page. After you read, the most important thing is reading. After you read, you're going to complete your task. Now, this is an example of how I'd like it to look. Really, you can put it however you want. I'm asking that you use color to make it look rich, and I'm asking that you give detailed information about this ecosystem. This page has a lot of information. You don't need to use your cell phones to find anything. You're only going to include, I'm skipping ahead. Let's start here. So task 1, you're going to tell me about the producers, the consumers, the decomposers, and the abiotic and the biotic factors. Now remember, I don't care how you have it presented. I mean, on your paper, as long as it's not like balled up and you just say, this is my work. You can rearrange this paper. You actually have a longer sheet of paper. You can rearrange it however you like. But I want you to present that information on task 1. Task 2, you're going to take the biotic information from task 1 and you're going to assemble a food web. Your food web should have animals from the paper. So these animals I should be able to find in that paper. I have some students confused about these herbivores eating trees. Well, if you think about it, in your paper it tells you that a redwood tree is a huge tree. It's a coniferous tree. It's towering is what it says. But if you think about it, a seed has to sprout. And if you ever take a walk around nature, you'll see trees in their juvenile state. A lot of them resemble bushes. So this is not a giant California redwood tree just yet. This is actually a small bush-like tree, and you can think of the herbivores as being able to eat the leaves of that tree. So your food web is going to be detailed based on all the organisms you have on this paper. Task 3. So right here on task 3, you're going to describe the flow of energy. So, you can draw an energy pyramid right here. You can describe the 10% rule. You can describe 90% of energy being lost as heat. And then it also asks you in task 3 to detail what would happen if we removed one or some more herbivores. And that should be very easy to state considering that we just went over a biomass pyramid. I'm looking for these words that we went over in this lesson in task 3. Task 4, we're talking about sustainability and human impact. So task 4 says research and identify one human activity that can potentially disrupt food chains and food webs within the Evergreen Grove. Well, think about what humans do that impacts the forest. I've seen pollution, deforestation, because we chop trees down to make land for agriculture. We chop trees down to make wood that we build houses out of, to make paper, to do a lot of things, mulch. So think about those activities and explain how that activity might impact the organisms and the trophic levels. There's that word again, trophic levels. You should be able to tell me what it means by now. And then lastly, you have to propose 2 conservation strategies that can be implemented to mitigate the negative effects of the identified human activity. Let me walk you through what that means. Mitigate means to stop. So you're going to propose 2 strategies that humans could use that we can implement to stop the degradation of these forests. And then justify the importance of stopping it. I mean, think about where we get our oxygen from. Think about where the carbon dioxide goes that's dangerous to the environment. If too much carbon dioxide builds up, it increases the temperatures on Earth. And then when temperatures increase on Earth, we get things like the forest fires or the fire hurricanes that we just had in Hawaii. So I want this project to be done nicely and neatly. I'll be taking this one as a major. If you don't finish today in class, but I'm really expecting you to do it, you can go ahead and take it home with you. But my students who do finish it, your grade will be immediately updated Friday as soon as I get in, or at least by my conference period. I'm going to take that grade, implement it as a major. My students who do not have it turned in, either you can get it to me Friday, or I'll give you extra time. I'll extend the time. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. Thank you.